Hey guys, how's it going? Alex Scott here with Consordini.com. Thank you guys so much for checking out another one of our super cool studio gear reviews. Today we are taking a look at another plugin suite. This is another part of IK Multimedia's Total Studio Max 2. We are looking at T-RackS 5, okay? T-RackS 5 is IK Multimedia's kind of catch-all plugin suite combined with a very full-featured mastering suite. And it kind of has two main faces to it, and that's kind of how I'm going to split this video up. We have a whole plugin bundle that goes into your DAW, no matter what DAW you use. They're all just VST plugins, and it comes with a lot of really amazing dynamics plugins, EQ plugins, reverbs, all that kind of stuff. So we're going to look at all of that within Studio One, my DAW, kind of go through all of these different modules you can see here and talk about what they are and how they sound. But that is not all there is to T-RackS. There's also the standalone application, which we're going to take a look at in just a moment here. And that is a very, very comprehensive mastering solution, which I really, really enjoy working in. Normally I master in Ozone, and I still love Ozone, and it's still kind of my primary mastering tool. But I think that T-RackS 5, especially when you look at the standalone software, is a really, really nice mastering suite for those of you who need to do dedicated masterings of whether it's individual songs or full records or EPs or whatever. It's a very, very cool, very streamlined application. So we're going to take a look at that in just a little bit. But first, I do just want to go over what plugins it comes with, what VST plugins, processing plugins, and kind of talk about what they are. The main thing that I really like about T-RackS and what it comes with is that if you think about a lot of the other plugin companies on the market right now, whether it's Waves or Softtube or anything, a lot of times what they sell, and it kind of falls into one of a couple of different camps. Of course, you can always just buy individual plugins standalone. That's true of most manufacturers out there. But when it comes to bundles, a lot of times manufacturers have a tendency to separate their bundles out a lot, or to just offer you one bundle that kind of comes with some basic things, and then they make you buy the more advanced individual plugins above and beyond that. So like Waves would be a good example of the former. They have tons of different bundles, but their bundles are all kind of limited to like, okay, here's a few EQs and channel strips, and that's the bundle. And it might not come with great dynamics or verbs or anything like that. It just focuses on EQs and channel strips. And if you want some of those dynamics plugins, you have to go, get their dedicated dynamics bundle or their dedicated reverb bundle or what have you. But then like Softtube, with their Volume 3 bundle, which I love and I use all the time, it's very broad spectrum, but it doesn't really come with a ton. It comes with one nice reverb, it comes with maybe one or two different nice EQs, one or two different nice compressors, but it's not in and of itself a totally full-featured solution. Well, that's really where T-RackS 5 shines, because you get a really great set of EQs, of compressors, limiters, of imaging tools, of reverbs, of other types of effects. It all comes with this one bundle. You get all of the boxes checked in terms of those classic units that you love. They have some of their own design, kind of newer style stuff in here. It's just a really great comprehensive all-in-one bundle. So, running through what all it comes with, we have the Black 76, which of course is a Revision D 1176 FET compressor, classic. Brick wall limiter, self-explanatory. The British channel, which is an SSL 4000 style channel strip, very nice. The T-RackS 5 bus compressor, which is an SSL 4000G bus compressor, that classic, radio ready kind of SSL glue compressor. Then we have some of these classic modules, and these are designed to sound, real vintage and real kind of classic, but they are modeled after IK Multimedia's own design. So a lot of these, from what I understand, like the classic compressor, it takes some of the sonic characteristics of a lot of our favorite vintage compressors and kind of combines them all into one unit. So that's very cool. Clipper, of course, is going to give you some distortion stuff. Compressor Classic EQ is kind of a more vintage style EQ that can be used either for gentle tone shaping, for more precision EQing. It's kind of an all-around tool. Classic multiband limiter, a little bit more geared towards mastering, but again, more of a vintage vibe. Moving on from there, we have 4 different reverbs, all of which sound really, really nice. In particular, the CSR Classic Studio Reverb Hall, which has a very Lexicon 480 kind of a vibe to it, which I really, really like. But we've got Hall Inverse, which gives you some very cool effect reverbs, Plate, and Room. We have the T-RackS 5 De-Esser, which is a very modern, very precise de-esser that I've been finding myself using a lot on problematic vocals. T-RackS 5 Dynamu, this is the Manley Varimu compressor, a classic, more modern, but still kind of a mainstay in a lot of studios around the world, compressor that's used a lot for both tracking and mixing as well as mastering. EQ73, EQ81, of course, classic Neve EQs, the EQP1A, Pultec Tube EQ. We also have 3 different API style EQs, which I really like. You don't see a lot of plugin manufacturers doing much with the API EQs, even though they are very well-known units. We have the 550A, the 550B, and the 560 graphic EQs. These sound excellent. Then we have this very, very interesting one, Equal, however you want to say it. And you can add basically as many bands as you need. Parametric Equalizer, you can drag everything around, you can adjust cues, all this stuff you can see. We'd have a spectrum analyzer here over the audio if I had anything playing in the background. But it can get very, very, very precise if you need to do notching type stuff. It can get very broad, very gentle. It's just more of a modern approach to a parametric EQ. We have a Leslie cabinet emulator. We have a linear phase EQ, which is more of a mastering style, kind of transparent EQ. This one I think is very cool. This is the Master EQ 432, and this is modeled after, I believe, a Mazalek mastering equalizer, which Mazalek makes very, very high-end mastering processors. We also have Master Match, and this is not unlike some of the stuff that you can do in Ozone, where you can actually load a reference track that you really like the mastering on, and it'll match not only the level, but it'll do some kind of spectral space shaping or spectral matching stuff to try to give your track the overall sonic feel of whatever your reference track might be. So that can be a very handy tool if a client comes to you and says, hey, I need this mastered, but I really want it to come out sounding like X, Y, or Z record. You can drag a track from that record in that they really like, and it'll help to get your levels and your overall feel closer to that goal. So very, very nice. We also have just a standalone dedicated metering suite here, which I really, really like. So we've got, spectrograph, Lissajous and polar sample stuff, peak metering, LUFS metering, pretty much everything that you would need in a good catch-all meter. Now this is something that I find myself using a lot these days, because I also do have one of IK Multimedia's, it's right here, the little pop filter on it, their iRig Studio mic. And you can do this with a lot of different mics because this is how the software is set up, but it works particularly well with IK's mics. You have a huge list of mics that, whatever your source is, so let's say you're using a Dynamic 57, obviously a Shure SM57, you can then, using the wizardry of processing, turn that into pretty much any microphone you want. So it'll actually take your source, which was recorded with any mic, you tell it what it was recorded with here, let's, again, a 57, a 58, something like that, and then it will model that sound into the sound of maybe something a little bit nicer, like an AKG C12, like a Royer R121, like a Neumann KM184, like, pretty much any of these, an AKG C414. So very, very cool, and it sounds really nice. I've been using it, again, in conjunction with their mic to do like voiceover stuff and to record percussion and different instruments here in my mobile studio, and it's very convincing. You can also definitely use this tool to just alter the tone of things. It doesn't have to be recorded with any specific mic or modeled into any specific mic. Like there's this telephone setting, which I've found myself using a lot to kind of band pass things, and like if I want something to sound like it's playing through an old radio or through an old telephone, this is a great way to just quickly grab that and kind of get that tone going on. So overall, very, very cool plugin there. Next, we have the OptoComp, which is more of a kind of modern style optical compressor. We have the Precision Comp Limiter. This is a emulation of the Neve 33609. Very, very well known and very good sounding compressor. And we have this kind of little quad series of plugins: Quad Compressor, Quad Image, and Quad Limiter. These are all 4-band multi-band processors. So the Quad Compressor is a 4-band compressor, the Quad Limiter is a 4-band limiter, and the Quad Image, I'm really curious to play around with this. I haven't much yet, but this is a lot like the imaging part of the Ozone mastering software, which I use all the time and absolutely love. So you can push out the image or pull it back of individual bands of frequencies within your music. Very, very cool way to control the stereo width of a song. It's something I do a lot, and I'm excited to mess around a little bit more with that. Definitely more of a mastering type plugin. We have T-RackS 5 Saturator X, which is all about saturation and distortion. So we have some tape settings, we have some tube settings, we have more solid state transistor, transformer style stuff, and you can use this to get a lot of different flavors of saturation and distortion into your audio. Very cool. The Stealth Limiter, very powerful mastering limiter, kind of in the style of Wave's L2 or L3 Ultra Maximizers. We do have the T-RackS 5 Suite, which is kind of a stripped down plugin version of the standalone application, but again, we're going to get to the standalone application in a moment here. Tape Echo, Roland Space Echo, very, very good sounding, kind of very saturated tape delay, sounds great, I love it. A couple different tape machine emulations based around classic units, love those. The VC670, which we all know and love, the Fairchild 670, super classic and legendary unit. White 2A, obviously an LA 2A optical, and then the white channel, which is more of an SSL 9000, more of kind of a clean and transparent type SSL sound. So those are all of the plugins that come with T-RackS that you can load into any DAW. Again, they're just VSTs. And like I said before we got into them, it's a really good set of plugins. There's a lot of options in here. It's mainly focused around EQ and dynamics, but within those, there's a ton of different things. They've got Neve stuff, API stuff, all your classic compressor flavors. They've got some of their own more modern compressor and EQ flavors. But even then, we've got all these different reverbs. We've got the Space Echo. We've got this mic room, which can do some interesting things. It's just, it comes with a lot, and all of that stuff is very, very usable. There's nothing in here that I feel like is something that would be like a throwaway plugin that you wouldn't find yourself using. I think that there's advantages to having and using all of these different devices. There isn't one in there that I don't think is worthwhile. But that is not all there is to be said about T-RackS 5, because it comes with its own standalone application. And this is really where T-RackS 5 got started, from what I understand, when T-RackS, as the program was initially released a number of years ago. It was really first and foremost, and has always been designed to be, more of a mastering suite than anything. And you can really tell that when you open up the full program itself. So I'm going to load in just a couple of really basic tunes. They don't need to be mastered. We're not really going to listen to them, but it'll at least let me show you guys all of the features in here. So we've got a couple of tunes loaded up. Really everything starts and stops with your clip list down here. This is where all of the tunes on the record or EP or whatever you're working on are going to be listed. It's going to give you the total runtime down here. As you click through and select each different song, it's going to load up the mastering chain for that song. Of course, you can copy chains between songs to keep things consistent, but then this is also where you're going to be able to export either individual songs, all of the songs separately, or all of the songs as one big file if you need to do that. You've got sample rate, dithering, all that stuff in here, but this is really the main control for the tracks that you're working with. Above that is where we have our preset manager. Now, we have a global tab and a module tab. The global tab is whole entire chains that it's just going to load up and give you a great starting point. And all nice and descriptive, complex control, colors and shapes, high-end enhancer, very descriptive for what they're going to do. But then when you jump over to the module, this gives you all of the different modules that you can load in, and has individual lists of presets for each, which is very, very handy. So you can kind of either navigate based on whole mastering chains or based on modules individually. Undo, redo. Over here we have two different main views that we can use. We can either look at the waveform of the tune, or we can look at the actual chain that we're working with, okay? And the chain is down here. Obviously you've got your unit that you pull up here, depending on what you click on, but your chain, if you go down here, here's all of our different modules, and you can grab any of these modules and drag these into the chain. Now, you can also do some very creative stuff where you can split and kind of have things running in parallel, and you can, of course, load different presets into each of these units using your preset navigator up here. It's a very, very cool and intuitive way of doing things, and it really makes you think like you would in the analog world, where you're chaining different devices together and doing different things with each device. I really like how it's laid out in that way. And then of course you always have your master match over here, which you can turn on and off very, very easily in case you want to use that referencing feature. And then anytime you need to jump to specific parts of your song, you can just jump back over to this waveform view and then back over, look at your chain, back and forth. It's all very, very easy. Now, this is album assembly when we open this up, and this is where you can do any fades if you need to, where you can edit the length or the crossover point between any of the tracks. You can rearrange stuff, you can drag individual tracks around, you can preview stuff. If you need to add or delete tracks, you can, this is really the management of the session of the whole record. Once you have all your tones figured out and all of the actual mastering done, you go in here into this album assembly page, and that's going to let you put together all of the kind of time constraints and organizational stuff. This is also where you can do all of your tag editing, ID3 tags for MP3s, ISRC codes, title the album, artist for the album. It'll embed all of that for you, obviously. Basic transport control, runtime. Got a very, very easy mono to stereo switch here. Now this up here lets you A, B, and indeed C and D different mastering chains. And this is something that is also in the plugins that you can load into your DAW, which I think is really, really nice. So if you set up a chain or you set up a preset in an individual module or in a whole mastering chain, you can do a few different things and then really easily A-B between up to 4 different chains or 4 different presets to figure out what you're liking. And then we have this, which is a global chain kind of activate or deactivate. So when you turn this off, it actually bypasses your entire chain. So you can really easily and quickly turn all your mastering on or turn all of your mastering off. Very, very handy feature. And then finally, we have all of our metering here. It gives us LUFS, it gives us total dynamic range, it gives us peak and RMS metering. And then you can integrate, if you have the ARC software, which is room tuning and room management software, you can activate that here as well. So that's really everything that there is to it in terms of how it actually works. But it's so nice and full featured, and it's so nice and intuitive to use. I think it's a great solution, especially for people who are maybe a little bit newer to mastering. Like if you have a good idea of how mastering works as a process, but you don't have a ton of experience really doing it, this is gonna be great software. It's a little bit less technical than Ozone. Ozone, there's a ton of options. All the modules that you can load up in Ozone are so incredibly intensive that if you have a lot of experience with mastering, it's an amazingly powerful tool and everything's right at your fingertips. But if you're more new to it, maybe you're a little bit more used to working with more traditional plugins like a 670 plugin or a tape machine plugin or something, that's a little bit more how T-RackS is set up. And I like that. I think it's great for people who are just getting into mastering and getting their feet wet and really want to start practicing it and learning the process. I think this is a very, very good solution for somebody like that. It's also very, very fast, and it sounds really, really good. I've been really impressed as I've worked with everything that IK has in their Total Studio Max 2 bundle, whether it's the Miroslav Philharmonic Symphonic stuff, Sample Tank 4, which we're doing videos on a lot of these different plugins and sample libraries and stuff, so watch out for those over the coming months. But I've just been really impressed overall with the quality of everything. My only gripe, and I say this also in the Sample Tank 4 video, T-RackS 5 obviously is not nearly as bad because it's much smaller, but installing some of the IK multimedia stuff is a bit of a nightmare. It involves downloading tons and tons of zip files, unzipping them all manually, running all these different installers and all this kind of stuff. Like I said, T-RackS 5 is not nearly as bad because they are just plugins, so it's only a couple zip files, it's only a couple of EXEs that you have to run. But with some of the other portions of Total Studio Max, it took me like 3 days to get everything downloaded, unzipped, installed, all put in the right folders and everything. It was a bit of a nightmare. So my one plea to the guys at IK Multimedia, if you ever see this, please get a good download manager or an installation manager like all the other plugin companies have. Would really make it a lot easier. But again, that doesn't as much apply to T-RackS because it's just plugins. It's a little bit smaller and easier to get set up, but it's worth mentioning, I think. But yeah, in any case, that's T-RackS 5 for you guys. Really fun, really cool, really intuitive, comes with a ton of great stuff that you can use in your DAW for mixing, comes with this entire full-featured mastering suite. It's a piece of software that I'm really, really impressed with. I think it sounds great, and I think for anybody who's looking to get into mastering or who needs a really good comprehensive mastering solution, this is a great program for you guys to check out. But as always, what do you guys think? Please let me know in the comments down below. Do you like T-RackS 5? Have you used it? Do you use Ozone? Do you use other mastering systems or pieces of mastering software that you like more? Whatever your thoughts may be, definitely stick them down below. Love hearing from you guys. If you haven't subscribed to Consordini yet, please do so. Click that notification bell to be kept up to date with our new content. If you want to give this video a like or a share, that's always appreciated. My name is Alex Scott with Consordini.com. Thank you guys so very much for watching. Really appreciate it, and we will see you in the next video.